This is the UB Football Podcast with Brad Riter and Scott Wilson.
Every football fan in Western New York is talking about the same thing today. Fourth down, ball at the 26-yard line, game on the line. What do you do? There are choices to make, but maybe the best choice is just to put the ball in the hands of your playmaker and see what happens.
Fourth down and 10. Agbana got time. Now he'll step up. Will he run? Yes. He will run. Get the first down at the 15, at the 10, at the 5. Bullseye! C.J. Agbonafide keeps the Bulls in the game.
It is the UB Football Podcast. Brad Riter along with Scott Wilson. Some similarities between a couple of big plays that we've seen over the course of the last week. Like watching Josh Allen do his thing, I could not help but think of C.J. Agbana. And I know the percentage of people in Western New York who were thinking about Agbana at the time that the Bills are putting away the Kansas City Chiefs is pretty low. But I've got one of them on the line with me in Scott Wilson. So, I don't know. It's been a pretty good week of football, man.
Yeah, no, that was both of those games were real fun. really fun games, for sure. And, yeah, listen, fourth down, you got to have a guy make a play. And usually that's your quarterback. And both teams needed it. Yeah, I mean, if they don't get that first down, let's say they hand that off and they get stuffed, the Bills.
Yeah.
I mean, Mahomes is winning the game. That's it. Yep. And not only is the play amazing and fun, but I think it's also encouraging that McDermott recognized that as well and said, listen, we got to score here or we're going to lose.
Well, it would be crazy.
And went for it on fourth down because I think – now, I mean, when he gets to the playoffs, he tends to coach a little bit differently, but I think it's for a large part of McDermott's career, he's been kicking that field goal to go up 5 and then losing by 2. So he went for it, and it paid off. And I think you want to draw another similarity. There's another decision just like that from the last game, UB against
End of the first half. End of the first half, right?
End of the first half. 4 seconds left. And, Coach Lembo, I think, basically says this ain't a field goal game, man. It's clear. We're here, and we're either going to score a touchdown. It's going to be great, or this is going to be devastating to get an interception to the 2-yard line with 9 seconds to go and get no points out of it. And rolled the dice, got the touchdown, completely changed the game and the momentum going into halftime, and was in a game where you needed every single one of those points. It turned out to be the right decision.
I think what makes me feel so good about both of these wins is that I'm proud of the coaches for getting it right. Even if you fail, it's not, to me, there's been a fight forever about like analytics versus gut. And I've always contended it's a combination of the two. You take all of the available information that you have and coach accordingly. And I think both of these guys are not going to tell, neither of these guys, is going to tell you, well, we looked at a chart and the numbers dictated this. It's like, no, based on my experience with the game of football, I knew what we needed to at least try to do. And that's the way I want my teams coached. I don't want a guy with a clipboard saying, the numbers say I need to go for 2 here. The numbers say I can't kick a field goal. The numbers say... I want you to have that information, but I want it banked in your head, along with your history of how things have gone in football worldwide, how things have gone in football personally, and how things have gone against, let's say, Patrick Mahomes, for example. And you need all of that. You need like a global knowledge of the past and the math and the personnel and the situation, and make your decision accordingly. And seeing it come through twice this week for my 2 favorite teams, the UB Bulls and the Buffalo Bills, makes me feel not just happy, but like fulfilled as a sports fan, that these are the guys I'm rooting for. Okay, I can think along with Pete Lembo. It hasn't always been the case at UB or with the Bills, where I'm on board with your line of thinking. But to see that a couple times in the course of the same week just has me kind of on cloud nine as a football fan right now.
Yeah, and I mean, both games very exciting, obviously, but especially that UB game. I mean, that was incredible. I know that I caught a little flack there, end of the third, headed to the fourth quarter.
I know where this is going.
From my boy Paul Pike when I said, this is going to sound crazy, but I'm telling you right now, the first one to 50 is going to win this game because there ain't no defense being played. And I don't even want to say that. I don't even want to say that there wasn't any defense being played. I think there was really good offense being played.
Yeah.
I mean, both sides were just executing what they wanted to do at a high level on offense on both sides, Ball State's offense and the Bulls' offense. Now, there were mistakes in there for sure, and there were some errors, and there was definitely some things. You give up 45. There's things to work on. Yeah. There's some tweaks that can be made, but I think both offenses were operating, and the Bulls just survived. They kept getting it to the next play. All right, we're down. They were down 2 scores numerous times in the game, and numerous times it would have been easy to fold and let the thing really cascade on you. And instead, they just kept keeping themselves alive in the game. All right, listen, down 11, let's get some points. Let's score a touchdown. And when we score the touchdown, we're still in it. And they kept doing that until the defense could make just enough couple of plays. And, I think it was you and Bob said it at halftime, which was one of these teams is going to have to get a stop. Somebody's going to have to make a play on defense. And if I have to look right now, I would probably bet that the Bulls have the defense that are able to make a stop and get a stop. And guess what? They needed a stop. They get back to within 8, and they kick the ball away, and they need a stop. They got to get the ball back. And the defense steps up and gets the ball back. No points, no nothing, just a straight-up stop before they cross midfield, and they get the ball back for the offense. And that turned out to be kind of the story. The defense got the stop, even in overtime.
Yeah.
The defense held them to a field goal, took them back on first down, forced an incompletion. And, next thing you know, you got a quarterback that doesn't like to run, that is forced to step up in the pocket. And you got your the two guys that are leading the nation in tackles, stepping up there and making the stop, forcing the field goal. And the second that field goal was kicked, both sides, you could tell there was a lot of excitement on the Bulls sideline, and the Ball State sideline looked like, oh man, we just lost it, didn't we?
Yeah. Well,
we just lost the game.
That is the beauty of winning the toss in overtime. The sort of having it declared to you what you need to do, and it is score a touchdown and win. You're at the 25-yard line. You've been scoring all day. You just scored 2 touchdowns back to back, and like you said, mix in a 3 and out in between. But the Bulls trailed by 14 points with under 6 minutes to go, and put together a minute 25 drive that went 75 yards for a score, and a minute 27 drive that went 73 yards for a score. You can get there from the 25, and holding them to a field goal. It brings up the question, was that the right move? I mean, Mike New doesn't have a job anymore, and there were mistakes that were made throughout. I don't know if this in particular was a fireable offense, but certainly as a last straw, he lines up for that field goal. Make or miss, it sure felt like the Bulls had already won the game. And I wonder if there's an athletic director who was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, well, I bet you if you asked Mike, because as you said, he got fired on Sunday after the loss, after they become, not bowl eligible. Yeah. Not bowl eligible. And I bet you he would say, geez, if I knew I was going to get fired the next day, I would have gone for that.
Sure.
Yeah, I bet you he would.
Right.
For sure, yeah. And, there was, if you want to boil it down to 2 big-time decisions by coaches in the game. It was Coach Pete rolled the dice at the end of the first half. It paid off, and Mike New did not in overtime. on what would have been, I think, 4th and 4.5, 4th and 5, and kicked the field goal, played it conservative, hoping that their defense was going to make a play, which I think is fair to say. You had already surrendered 45. You were not going to stop. You're just that you weren't going to do it. You weren't going to make a stop there. So, that's those little decisions always end up having a big impact in the MAC. And, especially we didn't talk a lot about it at the time, but Tanner Koziel, the
monster tight end, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was a beast all day.
Was he 11 catches for just under 100 yards, I think?
Yeah, I mean, he was there. So, I mean, I think that you would probably say, man, I got to get 40 yards, and I got a 6'7" guy at tight end that's been doing work. Turn around at 5 yards, and I'm going to throw it 8 feet in the air. Just go up and grab it, which is basically what they had been doing, especially in the red zone. Like, there was times where the Bulls, and Marquise Cooper had textbook coverage on him, but they threw the ball 8.5 feet in the air.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Like, you're right. He's right there. You just can't get up that high because he's so tall. But luckily for the Bulls, didn't have to worry about it. And I like, another thing about Agbana, going back to him and making plays, I like that they're down 8 and there's like a minute to go. And he just basically says, screw it. Jenkins is down there somewhere. And their DBs suck. And I like my guy. And he just tosses it up basically to the front pylon.
Yep.
It's just a jump ball. And Jenkins races over, high points the ball, gets in good position, takes advantage of terrible defensive back play, and gets the ball in the end zone. And then I didn't say it on the broadcast, but I do want to say it here. They need the 2-point conversion after that touchdown. It's by no means a gimme there that all of a sudden he catches that ball, the game is tied. That's not the case.
No.
And there had been a lot of chippiness and a lot of jawing and a lot of talking, especially in the second half of that game between the two teams. Jenkins catches the ball, rolls over, and is like right on top of that Ball State DB.
I shoved him in the head as he got up by shoving him in the head. Yeah.
Catches it, shoves his head down to the ground. Like, what? And Victor Snow was right there, who, by the way, was also open on the play. It just as a sign of what Ball State's coverage was looking like. Everyone's open. And Snow goes over, grabs JJ, and just pushes him towards the sideline and gets him out of there. And that's a huge play because if he gets a taunting penalty, now you're going for 2 from the 18-yard line. And, I mean, I guess the way things were going, you could probably just throw it again. In the end zone again.
Do the same thing again. Yeah.
Do it again. But, I mean,
but Snow escorting him out of there, like, let's go, was super helpful. And I'll also say on that play, I don't know if I mentioned this on the broadcast, but on that play, I had chosen to watch Victor Snow. And when CJ released the ball, I thought, no, you're missing the open guy. But it turns out there were multiple open and available guys. The Jenkins catch was excellent and a great play and huge. It was hardly spectacular. It was just him, like you said, it was super basic. I'm bigger than that guy. I'm going to go up, just throw it to where I can get it, and I'll get it, and it'll be fine. So that happened. But, yes, I was watching Snow, who was wide open, and I thought that was the play. But I'm not a quarterback. I can't make all the reads at the same time. So that was, I don't know, that's the way that I saw it when it happened live.
Yeah, after the game, players talked about how they work on high point in the ball all the time, and that's basically it. I mean, that's the drill. Go up, catch the ball at its highest possible point, bring it down. And so just a great play. Jenkins has really, the last couple of weeks, emerged here as a really fun target, really reliable guy that catches the ball and can move the sticks for you and then also make some big plays down the field. And that's fun. LJ again. Another big game out of him, especially in the first half, where the Bulls were just like, all right, listen, we're going to pound you for a little bit. And they did. they moved the ball 4 or 5 yards a clip whenever they wanted to with LJ. And then, you get Lamar off the bench. Is he ready to play? He's cold. He didn't, he was in the game for maybe 2 plays before those final series in the overtime.
Yeah, something like that.
And he comes in basically cold and has to go in and make a play, and he does. So he was ready to go, and just a fun game. I mean, the game was out of control.
Yeah.
Out of control. That's exactly what you want, as a college football fan on a Tuesday night, saying there's nothing else to watch. And I'm going to watch this, and I want it to pay off. And 51-48 overtime pays off. And it was fun. At times, head-scratching, because there's a couple of quick passes that turned into big plays that we are not used to seeing given up by this Bulls defense. They've been such a good tackling team, especially on the perimeter. And a couple of times, Ball State, to their credit, they got their speedy guys the ball and got loose. Some of those quick end arounds really gave the Bulls some problems. And you can say what you want about Mike New, who's fired now, but he's always had good offensive teams. No matter what has happened, he has found a way to score the football, and has done it for years now since he's been there. And he did it again. I still think the Bulls have a pretty good defense, although the pass defense here needs to get back into the lab here and keep working.
Yeah, I want to believe it too, but
still,
there's some evidence to the contrary. But that said, a couple plays that don't normally go that way, and then a couple plays on the other side, 2 just sort of lob pass to no one throws from CJ Agbana that turn into fair catch type of interceptions. That's not the way this guy plays football. We've watched him all year, and we've watched him progress. And to see that, we weren't even seeing that at the beginning of the year when he was kind of feeling his way around. So that was, we were wondering, is he banged up a little bit? He took a couple of shots, but ultimately the Bulls are able to overcome the defensive lapses, to overcome a couple of really confusing passing plays from Agbana. But they just keep plugging, and that to me is the mentality of the team. It ties into what we started hearing from the players. Hey, you're bowl eligible. Bowl? We're trying to go to Detroit. Yeah, of course we're bowl. We need 8 wins. So yeah, of course we were going to get to 6 on the way to 8. That mentality, I just love it. I love the sort of blue collar approach, the working together, the constantly you get asked a question, you compliment a teammate every single time. There's a cool thing kind of bubbling under with the culture of this team that I really enjoy. And I think you need that to be able to come out on top in a game in which you took so many, body blows, head punches, and still were able to come away on top. I thought that was awesome. One other thing, talking about coaching decisions, and I want to hear if you agree with me on this. I've reached a point now where if I'm a head coach, the first thing I'm thinking is, what does the other team hope I do right now? And whatever they're hoping I do, I kind of want to do the other thing. So that takes me back to the decision at the end of the half. If I'm Ball State, I'm hoping the Bulls just kick the field goal. So that can't be what I do if I'm UB. If I'm UB, I'm hoping that Ball State doesn't remember that they have Tanner Koziel and instead attempts a 36-yard field goal in overtime. Except they do what I was hoping they would do, and that is kick it. So, I don't know. Have you ever thought about it that way? It's what do they want me to do? Let me do the other thing. Because I saw that on display multiple times, and it went the Bulls' way both times.
Yeah, and it reminds me a little bit of our conversations of when the Bulls have played Army. And it's I pray to God that Army doesn't get 4th and 2. Because I really don't want them to go for it. And I know damn well they're going to go for it.
Yeah.
Because that's their whole plan. Their whole plan is 4th and 2. 4th and 1, 4th and 2. They don't care. I don't want to face a 4th down. I want you to give me the ball back. And that's the goal. They get there, and then they run a fullback dive for 1.5 yards. And you're like, oh, God damn it. They're still on the field. Yeah. I want them to get it back. And yeah, I think that's that's definitely part of it. That definitely has to go into thinking, and like you said, it's got to all be around knowing the way the game is, having a feel for the game. And I think you see a lot of coaches don't have that. I forget his name. The old coach for the coach that got fired this past season from the Chargers, who, like, time and again would seemingly do something because the analytics said it, and it's like, bro, are you watching the game? Like, just kick the field goal, go up 11 with a minute to go, and win. And instead, he's going for it on 4th and 8 at the 40-yard line. And you're like, why are you making this harder? Why aren't you feeling the game? And I think Coach Lembo's got a good feel for the game. I think he's got a good understanding of not only the game, the way it's going, his opponent, but also his own team and his own guys. And he's got a good feel for what they can and can't do. And he has, and his coaching staff, I think time and again this year, even on the games where they've lost, have put them in a really good position to take advantage of what they can do, not only themselves but against an opponent. And that type of feel, and you said it about the feel of this team, and culture is probably an overused term and whatever in football now, but it's very true. You can tell that that the guys really care, that they're completely bought in and invested and playing for each other and united. And I think picking up from the top, they're very calm and collected, and they are not going to give up. They're going to keep going until the final whistle, and they have a really belief in themselves, and I think it's been shown time and time again this year, that if we keep fighting till the end, we're going to win. We're going to be able to pull that out. We have the fortitude to do it, where they might not be the most talented group together, talent-wise, in the league, but them together as a whole is more than the sum of their parts. Like, they can get there together if everybody does their job and gets there. And it reminds me another Bills tie. How many times have we seen free agents and now Amari Cooper come into the Bills locker room and after like a week get interviewed and say, man, it is different here. And in a very good way. Like, guys hang out, which is fun. The team is very close. And I think that type of stuff matters when you get into, we're at the tail end of the season here and fighting for going to bowl games, fighting for a championship. And I think the closer a team is and the more bonded a team is, it's going to show on the field. It's going to show that way, that they're going to keep fighting and win some of those close games. And, I think it has. It's paid off. 2-0 in overtime, one of them against a top 25 team, and another one where you were down 14 points with 6 left. I mean, it pays off, and it has so far.
When's the last time the Bulls won multiple overtime games in a year? 2008, when they won the MAC championship. Filling in a quick little hole, Brandon Staley is the coach you're talking about with San Diego Chargers.
Yes.
And
now Harbaugh is there, has a feel for the game.
Right.
Total
opposite. Right. So good transition here. You led me right into it because there are 2 games left before we talk about the Eastern Michigan game. What is the current? I have not done any of this. Oh, I have one other thing I want to say before this. This week was the most requests we've ever had for emergency podcasts. Like, oh my God, the Bulls just won that game. You and Scott should be talking about this immediately. And there was a part of me that wanted to, but I felt like we stuck around on the post-game show for way longer than we normally do because we couldn't stop talking about this game. And I wasn't ready to do it, that night. And then it just kind of got away. So we're doing it kind of leading into the Eastern Michigan game. But I will say that in my life, I have spent more time talking about this UB game than most in recent history. John Fuller, our good friend John Fuller, sent me a text the day after the game. Or no, he called me. I'm sorry. He's a beautiful man. He called me and he said, "Are you home?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, I'm eating lunch right near your house. Do you want to come over and talk about the game? This is like, 12 hours removed from leaving the stadium. And I said, absolutely. I met him there a minute and a half later, and we sat for 20 minutes just to talk about that game again. So I feel like I went on a different podcast. John Karuba does a UB podcast, and I've been on it a few times. You might have been on it too. I know Fuller's been on it. Good dude. And he just wanted to talk about it. My buddy Kevin was like, do you want to come over? And I've recorded the game. Do you want to just come over and watch it again? And we'll have microphones on and just talk about our emotions through it. I did none of this. I did record the thing with John. But the bottom line is there was a buzz after this game, unlike anything I felt in quite some time regarding the UB Bulls. Okay, so the next point is, or the next question, I guess, for you is, and this is part of the reason that I didn't want to record yet because we needed some processing. What's the MAC championship game situation? Because I know I want to see the Bulls win 2 more games, but how reasonable / realistic is it for the Bulls to actually get to Detroit, considering the outcome of the Bulls game and other things that have happened in the MAC over the course of the last week?
Right. Well, for the Bulls, I think the best case scenario at this point is, just keep winning and put the pressure on everybody else. There are 3 teams with 1 loss, and ironically, they are all from the East. BG, Miami, and Ohio are all at the top there fighting it out. And I do have the tiebreakers saved on my phone now. So
it's time.
It's starting to get about that time now. And you're going to need some of those teams to start taking losses. The better teams to lose would be BG and Miami, because at this stage of the game, an Ohio loss doesn't do anything for you. You still lost the head-to-head.
You need 2 Ohio losses to go.
So now you would
wins.
need that, right? You need them to lose out, and I don't find that to be very likely at this stage of the game. That there's always a possibility of losing 1. I don't think 2's in the cards. So I think at this stage, and not having a head-to-head against Miami and BG there, having those guys drop back to the pack to you, is certainly beneficial. And then you start getting into tiebreakers. Obviously, the most fun would be if everybody is 6-2. There's a possibility where there's like 6-2 teams, and it becomes, then you get into like the 5th tiebreaker, which is
GPA.
Oh, I wish. Man, you think that tiebreaker with Toledo is big then, with the head-to-head. Wait till you get into GPA. But you're talking about combined winning percentages of teams that you face,
common opponents and all that crap.
Common opponent records and stuff like that. Then you start really getting into the weeds of holy cow. For me right now, I think the frustration is that the Bulls should have had the ball at the 34-yard line against Western Michigan to have 35 seconds or 40 seconds, whatever it was, to go in and tie or win the game. And they got screwed out of that. And I think at this point, they very realistically could be that a 4th team with 1 loss. And then, everything gets really up in the air. Yeah. So at this point, I think, again, I always root for Ohio to lose. Yeah. I hope they go 0-12 forever, from now until forever. But it's just very unlikely. And a loss down at this point, losing one of the last 2 games, doesn't help the Bulls really at all. Now, they do have the tiebreaker over Toledo because of that head-to-head win, so that helps. Another team that at this point is looking to continue winning and will probably win out and be right around that same record if you're able to win out. So, they put themselves in a position where if you just keep winning and hope that Maction does what Maction always does, which is Maction, and have some of these guys come back to the pack.
All right.
Only 1 game, really. You only need like a loss, a couple of losses here.
Yeah.
It's not like, you're sitting at 3 losses in the conference and you really need chaos. This is, a guy can miss a 6-foot putt.
Yeah.
And come back to the pack.
So the best thing that could happen would be Ohio losing twice. Assuming UB wins, you need Ohio, not need, but the best case scenario would be Ohio losing twice, and then either BG or Miami losing, and then whichever team loses also loses when they play each other, and you keep winning. Then I think you're in a good spot. But that's asking for a lot. So
right.
we're just talking about root for the Bulls to win, and we'll see what happens. And root for the Bahamas Bowl to happen. I guess is kind of. I want to go to Detroit. I like Detroit. I love the Bahamas. So
here's the thing. New date on the Bahamas Bowl.
I know, it's even better.
So teams from that championship game before were not able to go because there wasn't enough leeway time to be able to get everything through customs
passports
and shipping
things,
and passports and get everything organized. Now that it's back in January and they've pushed it way back, they've given everybody an extra 2-3 weeks here. So the teams that do make Detroit can still go to the Bahamas Bowl.
Yeah.
And so that makes it so that if you get into this part of the year and you're a really good team, you don't have to say, oh man, I get to go to the Bahamas. I get to go to Detroit the first week of December and not the Bahamas the third week of December.
Right.
You get to be able to have a chance at both. So
now there is the potential for the dream season of championship and then go celebrate it in the Bahamas. That exists now.
Yep. Okay. Theoretically, it does exist because you would have.
That wasn't there before. That's nice. Yeah, you needed to be third place or worse previously, and now you do not. Okay, that's worth noting. Got my eye on that. Got my eyes on paradise right now. So I don't know.
Sorry.
Yeah. All right.
Bowl games are better in paradise.
They sure are. I got a shirt that says that. I think maybe a hat, bucket hat. All right. Eastern Michigan. Let's talk about the actual matchup here. We should probably do that since we're as a responsible UB football podcast. We should probably talk about this week's opponent in the Eastern Michigan Eagles. What are we looking at?
Well, we're familiar with the quarterback, Cole Snyder. Was here the last 2 years. This kid from the local high schools, and he transferred out at the end of the last season and ended up at Eastern Michigan. So it's a familiar face for sure, and I think with that comes us as viewers. I think we kind of know what Cole can do, what he can't do, and we certainly have seen enough games of him playing to know what bothers him. So, there's that. I mean, we if you can get early pressure, especially in the middle, and keep him in the pocket, he starts looking at the rush, and he becomes uncomfortable and starts to get erratic with it. And then on top of that, when he scrambles and when he runs with the ball, he's not real secure with it and fumbles. Right? I mean, does that not sound like the last 2 years?
Yeah, that sounds exactly right.
I mean, he's basically doing it with better coaching than he had certainly his last year at Buffalo, and they're getting the ball out of his hands a little bit quicker. It's a lot more spread offense, and he's having a nice season. He's having a nice season for sure. But if you can do some certain things, you can really mess with his eyes and kind of slow him down a little bit.
Are you referring to the 3 consecutive interceptions that he threw this past week?
Yeah, and a fumble in there as well. And then the week before that, he had some issues against, like, it's ridiculous that this team did not beat Toledo. They should have beaten Toledo by 2 or 3 scores. And not being able to convert on some of the early turnovers that they got against Toledo and then giving a couple back in the second half kind of spelled disaster for them. And even though they got the Hail Mary at the end of that game, they didn't get the 2-point conversion. And really, they could have a couple more wins on the season, but I think a big story for them is getting out of the red zone and settling too many times for field goals and not getting it in the end zone. And I think that, again, that is
a familiar story.
not something solely on Cole, certainly by any means. Watching the games this year, I mean, it's not all on him. There's been some drops and there's been some missed, assignments up front where he's getting hit pretty quickly. But, again, it feels like it's a familiar refrain because that was something that the Bulls have dealt with the last 2 years when he was at the signal caller for us.
This is another game in the category of the MAC parity will come to fruition type of thing, right? Like the Bulls have to be going into this calling it a winnable game. Eastern Michigan has to be going into this calling it a winnable game. They're both right. Yep. They're both right. I mean, that's where we are in a conference where we're trying to figure out a massive tiebreaker situation. Even though Eastern won't be a part of that, they're still a capable team of beating any, as you're discussing. They're right there just like everybody else.
Yeah, no, they're right there, 5-5, and just I think it should be said. And every time we play Eastern, I try to bring it up. The job that Chris Creighton has done as head coach of this team, I think, should be put into the history books of jobs that anybody has ever done anywhere ever. They're the worst team in college football by a lot. They were terrible teams. 1-win teams. If they got 3 wins, it'd be like, oh, maybe something's brewing down there. It never was. It was terrible. And Chris Creighton has got them, and look at this team. They're a real MAC team. That's not like some crap team that they used to have and just roll out there where you might be able to get one guy on that team where you're like, oh, there's a little potential there, but everybody else sucks. That's a real defense that they play over there. And the mindset and mentality that they have, I wrote it down after watching a couple of their games. They're the island of misfit toys. They know it, and they kind of like it. They play angry and will do whatever it takes to try and win, and they play hard. They do not have all the talent. They do not have anything else, but they're pissed. They're overlooked. They're pissed, and they have the ability to win games. And they believe in themselves. They believe that they can win games, which is something that program never had before Chris Creighton showed up. They play hard. I can guarantee you right now that this matchup between the Bulls and the Eagles this weekend, if you polled all the coaches in the conference about this season, who are the 2 teams that you really don't want to play? Just because you know that you're getting involved with a team that can beat you and can do so mentally because they're not going to quit. It's these 2 teams. They're very much
the 2
mirror
scrappers.
Yeah. These are the 2 scrappers. The guy that made the big play last week, J.J. Jenkins, got on our pregame show and said, I'm here at UB because no one else wanted me. That's what you got.
Yeah.
And by the way, insane that no one else wanted this guy. Yeah. He's great. He's been awesome. He's been so fun. And I think that you very much on these versions of teams, pretty much every year with Eastern. Eastern is like if you got a good kick of a kickball, you could put it in Ann Arbor. And they're always in the shadow of Michigan. Always, no matter what. And they've built themselves a little something. They've given themselves an identity. They've got that edge to them when they play. And they, very much like Ball State last week, they play 1-score games. I saw a stat that coming into this year, 65 of the 85 previous games coming into the season were 1-score games.
Jesus.
So, you look at the other 20 that are not included in that, that's FCS games, and that's like this year playing at Washington, that pretty much every MAC team has every year. They at least, most teams have numerous, but at least have one where, all right, Western Michigan's going to open the season at Ohio State, and they're going to get beat 59-0, and so that's not in there. But every other game that they've played basically has been a one-score game. It's been the same thing this year. It's the parity, like you said. These teams are so close in this conference that it's a Hail Mary at the end of a game. It's a turnover in the early parts of the fourth quarter that can swing the tide. They're so close that none of these teams are good enough to just blow you out, and none of these teams are good enough to just overlook. They all have something that they do really well and can get you. And they can move the ball. They've got some nice power backs. They don't really run all that well. They can at times, but they've got power backs when they're going to spread you out and then hit you with a big guy. Mims is a nice running back. And Snyder isn't going to light the world on fire, but he can distribute the football. And when he's got time and a clean pocket and he can keep his feet clean, he can deliver the ball. He can put it on you. If he feels comfortable, we've seen it, he can have a nice day. And if the Bulls aren't able to get pressure on him and move him off his spot and get him looking down at the rush, they're going to be in trouble, because we've seen the secondary here the last couple of weeks be put into a blender a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to say exposed, but they have certainly been picked on a little bit here the last couple of weeks, and that's going to be something to watch out. And Cole can run. We've seen him, zone read plays. Sure. He can get outside. He's not going to take it 60 yards for a touchdown. He can get you 12 and move the sticks when you need to. So that's another little added element that they've got. And then, they've got a big 300-pound nose tackle in the middle that's tough to move. And they've got some athletes across the board there on that defensive side. I think they rush the passer really well from the end spot. Now, part of that is they go hard and they go up the field quick. So you could see an opportunity for Ogbonna at times to step up into those gaps and maybe get out of the pocket if he needs to. But they can get up the field and cause some real trouble rushing the passer. So this is a really good team. They're going to be desperate. Their last game of the season is at Western Michigan. And Western, is a really good team that also sees themselves competing for the top upper echelon of the conference this year. So that's by no means a gimme. Plus, it's a rivalry directional MAC game.
Yeah.
And
they need to get to 6, and they're at 5.
And they got to get to 6. And this is a home game on Senior Day. And this, I'm sure that they're going to say, well, we'll win one of these last 2 because they're confident. But I think that of those 2, I would think an independent observer would say, home Senior Day, you better get it done. Because if you go to Western, now you're playing with fire and not going anywhere.
How is it possible?
They're going to be a desperate team.
How is it possible that the Bulls play 6 road games and 8 of them are senior night?
Yeah, I don't know.
It just
I don't know
happening.
how that has happened.
I've seen so many seniors this year.
I know. Yeah,
so many bouquets.
It's crazy.
So many bouquets.
I know Ohio did it because they don't do it weeknight games. So they did it. They do it their last Saturday game.
Okay.
Which
I guess that's really the problem. It's probably been 3 or 4, but it's a lot. It just feels like
no. I mean, I'm right there, and that it's always something.
They always sensitive.
Show up on something day.
Yeah, I'm sensitive to other programs saying, what would make good homecoming? Buffalo. What would make a good senior night? Buffalo. When we should dedicate this field to our former coach? Buffalo. When we should put this guy into the Hall of Fame? Buffalo. It just keeps happening, which, I'll take it, but I don't know. I'm starting to feel a little bit slighted. That's why you go in. That's how you get a chip on your shoulder, I guess. You go in there and take care of business. Is there anything else that needs to be addressed before we wrap this up, Scott?
Be just fans watching the game. Obviously, you're going to have the TV on and the radio way up. syncmygame.com.
Hell yeah.
But
SINK. My game. No. That's wrong.
No.
That's wrong. We've been informed that's wrong. It's SYNC, my game.
That's
no
right.
H. SYNC, mygame.com.
Gray turf.
Hate it.
It's there. It's the factory. That's what they've gone with. That's kind of their mantra. They always have a player carrying around a 50-pound wrench on the sidelines. They come out. They smash through cinder blocks when they come out of the tunnel.
How does Creighton recruit there? How does Creighton recruit there?
That's what I'm saying. It's unbelievable the job that he's done here.
It's like he's done
unbelievable.
It's like he was doing such a good job They wanted to add an extra challenge, like he moved up to the next level. Like, how about this? We're going to eliminate all the color from the turf. So when you walk into the field, you hate it. Now recruit, and it's still working. So good
and
for
one
him.
other thing that's new there of particular note is Max Crosby, who we saw in the stadium. He came in and gave at least $1 million to the football program, and their track is gone. It's still there, but it's turfed over. They got rid of the track and made it turf. So that space is still there, but it's all green turf on the outside. And then in big letters, Crosby Field. So they renamed the field for him. They got the turf in there, and looks aesthetically a little bit nicer.
That might help if part of the field is gray instead of a track and then a nothing field. It's just, I think, honestly, in person, it looks better than it does on TV, but every time I see highlights on that, it looks like, when they take like World War II footage and put it in color. Like, that's what it always reminds me of when I watch highlights there, because it's black and white here, black and white there. But here comes a red hawk, and he's in red, but everything else is in black and white. It's jarring to watch on television. It's a little better in person. I'll allow that, but I will scout that out because I think we all agree we still have a track problem at UB Stadium, and it's going to cost $1 zillion to fix. But maybe there's a new, cheaper alternative plan that we can scout when we're in Ypsilanti.
Maybe, and this is just spitballing, maybe the Bulls have their own defensive end in the NFL.
Malcolm Kuntz?
That would like to... He's a Raider, just like Max is.
Trevor Scott?
That would like to come back and throw a little scuttle at the issue there. But, yeah...
we got a sweet talk old number 46?
I'm saying... maybe let's build him a statue or something. Let's see what we can do there.
I think that's a great idea.
I would love to build have them put in I know you never watched Game of Thrones, but there's
I watched the first episode of Game of Thrones, and
it wasn't on that one. It wasn't on that episode.
And hold on,
how there's
no.
Okay.
You can wait a second.
All right.
And yesterday, when my wife was telling me about some movie she watched and who was in it, she said Emilia Clarke, and I said, from Game of Thrones. And here's how proud I am to have her as my wife. She's like, I have no idea about anything about Game of Thrones, and I said, that's great. But I knew that it was Emilia Clarke. So that's pretty good. Okay, go ahead. Tell your story. Sorry.
Yeah, no, she's the mother of dragons.
That's stupid.
Of course it is. Even some of the drawings that you've seen of Atlantis, where there's hold
on, the lost city of Atlantis, or are we talking about the Bahamas?
Yeah.
Again? Okay.
No, the lost city.
Okay.
There's that 300-foot statue of a soldier holding a thing over the port, where you enter the port. I'm saying we just make a Khalil Mack.
Yeah.
Where he it's big enough so that he's straddling the stadium, like a 300-foot tall statue.
Yeah, you have to walk. You want to first down, you're going to have to go under Khalil Mack's expanded concrete legs or something. Yeah, that's okay. I'm in. Yeah,
I'm talking massive statue.
I like in
the end zone. There's a 300-foot statue of Khalil Mack.
Hey, what do you know about Xerxes?
Well, I know that he was, obviously the vicious ruler of.
You don't have to do this. You don't have to do this. I'm going to tell you what
from North Africa. He was the bad guy in 300.
Yes. Okay. And what city is he best known for torching and destroying? I just learned this at a middle school. Athens. I just learned this at a middle school concert this past week when they played this Xerxes song, and they talked about Xerxes just burning Athens to the ground, and it made me think that if they ever make us go back to Athens, Ohio, we should have a Xerxes theme to maybe the pregame show, maybe the game itself, but certainly the podcast. Maybe we can find a copy of the Xerxes song. I don't know, just throwing it out there. Since we're talking about Atlantis and statues and
historical figures, I'm just saying big. Yeah. I'm just saying big statue. Big statue.
Would you? How about
statue? You know how you've been to New York City and seen Statue of Liberty?
Is that is that the green thing in the water?
That's the green thing with the torch?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm talking like 3 times the size.
Right. But Khalil
Mack.
Yeah, I like
Khalil
it.
Mack. Make a real statement.
How about Maction Field with a K?
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
We could do all of this. All right, dude. We should stop, and I will see you on the airplane to Detroit, where we will stay in a hotel that's connected to the airport.
Can't wait.
Better than busing there, which we did last time, which was dumb.
That's right.
That was really dumb. All right, see you there.
See ya.
I don't know about you guys, but I just want to get the hell out of here.